read this? Just out of curiosity. Did you read number 4?
Yes, I did. I got some questions to ask about that.
I just want to make sure I'm not. We want to make sure we're the only one running the.
Yeah, I know they're trying to get North Channel put one in. When they approached the board members wanted to
Garnier
come
approached us
and
yesterday.
he's having a fit with his board as is. They want to get involved and micromanage.
Been in
Couple guys
EMS long
just
enough to
retired.
never
They don't have a thing to do.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to.
the entire course.
Have you heard any results from that CCC group? Really?
All right, well,
What's their rationale?
They're wanting to try to device.
these are just I wonder if they pour easier.
Don't make me come down there. I mean, I don't come down there. I could be like Epley and start banging the gavel.
As long as that's the only way you're like Epley.
Howdy, everybody. Wow. There's a big projector in the way. Maybe that's why Ronnie was sitting over there. Oh, well. Hi. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the EMS committee meeting. And we'll take roll as we go throughout the meeting. But it does look like we have a quorum here, so that's good. We can get moving. And we're going to start off with some announcements of changes to our committee membership for 2012. As we know, this is the time of year when the applications are done, and then all the committees get hashed out who's on the committee and who's no longer on the committee. And we have one person rotating off this at the end of this year, and that's Chief Brian McNiven from Commerce Fire Rescue. There he is. He's hiding down there behind the lawn. Come down here, Chief. It's got a little certificate for you. Thank you for your service to the GETAC EMS committee. And it's been a blast having you, and I know you're still going to be here, but thanks for everything you've done.
He has to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah, he has to stay for the whole meeting, and if we have a special meeting in December, he has to come to that. Or else we'll hunt him down. And replacing Brian on the EMS committee in 2012 will be Chief Tammy Kaye, the EMS division chief from Dallas Fire Rescue. And Tammy, are you out there? Go ahead and stand up. It's all right. Nobody will. That's Tammy. Chief Kaye has been pretty involved with the EMS committee at most of our meetings that we held regarding the revised changes to Rule 157. And so we're glad to have her aboard, and we know she'll be a great member of the group. And also, before we get too far into our agenda, we have Assistant Commissioner Kathy Perkins here, and I believe she wanted to talk to us about a couple of issues. So,
Yes, thank you for giving me this time. It's not something that's just come up, but it has come up in a recent article in the Houston Chronicle about Medicare fraud in EMS, particularly in the Houston area, but it's frankly in other parts of the state too. And I'm not asking for any action or anything. I just wanted to start this discussion with you guys because Dr. Lakey is very concerned about this, and he has asked the EMS staff for a plan on how we, from our perspective, now understanding that Medicare fraud and billing really isn't within the role of DSHS. However, if there may be things that we can do that can have some impact in it. And so I wanted, so there could be rules coming to you guys in the future, some things for you to think about. But let me give you a few statistics that I think you'll find interesting. There are currently 396 licensed EMS providers in Harris County. There are 569 licensed EMS providers in Health Region 6. Statewide, there are 1,241 licensed EMS providers. So almost half of them are within that Region 6 around Houston, okay? We currently have 74 applications pending for EMS providers within in that Harris and Fort Bend County, pending applications. Within the last month, we've been noticing a trend in private for-profit providers in the Houston area not having an active medical director. And one of the things we've already decided to do, and we put it in the EMS magazine, that if we go on site or do an inspection or complaint investigation involving an EMS provider and they do not have a medical director, we will emergency suspend their license until they do. If we find that there was, say, months, maybe they have one now, but there were times when they didn't for maybe months at a time, there will be financial penalties. So we're going to be, that's one decision that we've already done. We told Dr. Lakey that we would be doing that. As I said, we're working on a plan to look at things anywhere from, and he would like us to look at the whole gamut. What we can do within our own rules, what we might need through legislation, what we can do in collaboration with the medical board, and I'm also going to talk to the medical directors today for a few minutes about the same thing. We have some EMS medical directors that have 71 providers. Now, if you look at the rules in the medical board rules for EMS medical directors, I think it would be very difficult for those medical directors to be following those rules for 71 different providers. Just, I mean, it would be very difficult. So we've also done some mass inspections, and Dr. Lakey would like us to do some more of those, unannounced mass inspections. The challenge is we do have some resource. We have some significant resource issues. I have 2 positions vacant right now in that Houston area, and right now I have to keep them vacant. We're going to look and see if there's anything that we might be able to do with that, but right now I don't know that I can fill them. So I just wanted to lay that on the table right now. I'm not ready to go into a lot of additional things that we might be coming forward with. Some of these you've heard in the past. One of them certainly relates to whether there should be a different kind of license for these type of providers. They're not 911 providers. Maybe there should be a different type of license for them. Do we need some ethics training? There's a lot of things that are crossing our mind, and anything that you guys might be thinking about, we would be happy to have those. Doing my first report to Dr. Lakey next week, and then we'll be going from there. And I hope to meet with the Texas Medical Board sometime in the next month or so to discuss this issue with them. Do you have any questions for me?
Got a comment. Make sure I'm on. Okay. Kathy, first of all, I want to thank you for your staff. I'm the EMS chief for that city that article was written about, Tom Long.
Sorry.
And Brett and those guys over there, this was not just on our radar when that newspaper article came out. We knew about this for about a year, almost 2 years now. Maxie, Brett, and them guys down there in the office have worked with my police chief, some of my city council members, trying to figure out a way for us to clean some of this up. And they've been wonderful, and I just want to thank you for their hard work. And just really, they really did a great job, and I really appreciate it. It helped us be in front of this when the newspaper article came out to make sure that it didn't point at the EMS agency for the city. Because that's the way it could have been read very, very easily that way. The second thing is that I know you guys are short-staffed down there. I will tell you this. If you want to do mass inspections, I'll give you the name of about 5 or 6 EMS directors in the Houston area. For the EMS 8, or 6, that's Wharton's behind you. We will be more than happy to help you guys do that. You don't have to deputize us or anything like that, but I'll tell you what, I can read a list off and I can be with somebody just to do their documentation. Whatever it's going to take to clean up Harris County, I want to do.
Well, and we have been having some really good discussions with the city of Houston also, and they have some things that they can also do. Local areas, some have the ability to do ordinances, and so I think there needs to be
So
some of
just-
those kind of things.
Just remember that there are more people that live in the unincorporated areas of Harris County
Yes.
than, so the city of Houston, there's a lot of that there, but a lot of them are moving into the unincorporated areas, and we're seeing them pop up just outside of our city limits.
Yes, yes, and CMS is going to have to take an active role in this, and actually, this is something the FBI and possibly the OIG, Office of the Inspector General, need to get involved in too. The FBI had a task force up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It was there was really good results from that. I think that's something that might could happen in your area too. And CMS has got to take some action. They have the forms. They're taking them to community medical clinics now. They're somewhat gotten away from the kidney dialysis, although they're still doing some of that. But they're getting away and taking people to community medical centers, and basically they're taking them to storefronts. And they're not really getting services, and then they have the approval signed by somebody, probably isn't even a physician, that patient needs to be in the back of an ambulance. So CMS is going to need to step up and take a role, and there may be something that HHSC also from the Medicaid side can look at. So all of this, we're looking at all of it, looking at it very comprehensively, but we do think that there's a potential in the EMS rules that we might be able to do a few things that might help.
I just really want to thank you for Maxie and Brett and them. They went above and beyond to make sure that we were in front of this and gave us all the guidance that we needed to do to make sure that we were out in front of it. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll be looking to you guys, and we'll be probably bringing some stuff at the next meeting.
One additional thought, if I may. From the city management perspective, what I've heard a lot of cities express in the Harris County area is they would love to see a model city ordinance, something that's consistent, something that's uniform. Several cities have made attempts at doing that, and what you end up with is everybody's got their own little version, and there's nothing consistent. So then the good guys, the few that are actually active down there, that are part of the Harris County EMS Association and those kind of things that try to police this, they can't meet all these ordinance requirements because this city says this, that city says that, and they end up having the license through 15 cities.
So it's almost like Harris County needs to work with the cities within its area. We do, my understanding is Fort Worth has a good ordinance, Arlington, Austin too.
El Paso
So
as well.
we'll see if we can gather some of those.
If we could get you guys and the county together and roll out something in the way of a template for cities, that would be wonderful.
And there's a number of other stakeholder groups that have been talking about this that I know want to step up alongside and try to get this fixed.
All right.
Because it's a nightmare. And for those in the room that aren't anywhere near Harris County or the great state of Houston, the
state of Houston, yes.
Yeah. But it's affecting all of us.
Yes.
And if you've had the news on in the last 48 hours and heard that this great compromise thing that's supposed to happen in Congress isn't going to happen, and the cuts that are going to come to entitlements, those cuts aren't coming to people's benefits. They're coming to the people that provide the services, and that's us. And so we're going to lose more Medicare dollars. And as this continues to rear its ugly head, and it's not just in Houston, it's happening in my neighborhood in San Antonio now. It's starting up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's really
valley.
starting to grow heavily there.
In the valley.
And in the valley, another bad place. And so it's like a bad disease. And when we had H1N1, we all kind of freaked out and worked together to try to control that. And it's time for us to step up to the plate. DSHS can do some stuff. There's also some stuff we need to do, because I tell you, it's harder and harder to get money for the services we provide. And these yahoos doing this stuff illegally and siphoning that money off the top, that's money that's entitled to each and every one of us who are trying to do this job legitimately.
Well, it gives
And so-
EMS a black eye, number one.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing is that many times when a governmental entity comes down, it affects everybody. They can't say, we're going to target just these people to make it harder to get your reimbursement. It often comes down on everybody.
Yep.
So, all right, well, I thank you for your time, and we'll be bringing some more issues to you, more things to
Thank you.
discuss later.
And I like what Brian said. Thank you for working with us and letting us know about that. And we're eager to help. All righty. Maxie, did you have anything before we get into our agenda? Okay. We're going to go ahead and plow through. Number one was the gap analysis we did on the National EMS Education Standards. Those on the EMS committee and those who attended our meeting in Houston about 14 or 18 months ago, something like that, we reviewed that spreadsheet pretty much in depth and made a lot of questions and concerns. The Education Committee reviewed that. A lot of things that we brought up that they liked, but they didn't feel it was something they could mandate to every education program in Texas, and that maybe it was more fitting for agencies and medical directors to do. And I talked about one of those that we were concerned about yesterday with the Education Committee, which was pharmacologically assisted intubation, that there's a lot of agencies out there throwing medics that don't know how to do that into the place where they can do that without any training. And I know that's an agency issue, but you know, our thought when we put that list together was that that'd be a great skill to do across the board at the education level, so at least everybody got how to do it right at least once in their education. But I understand the Education Committee's desire not to see that happen. But they did take three of the things that we suggested and adopted them to that gap analysis. One is getting rid of education, or getting rid of the skill of mask pants and making those go away from the education side. The other thing we asked for, and for the life of me I don't remember why, otherwise it's a really good skill to know and to have, and that is urinary catheterization. We asked to have put on there, and they did say that they agreed with that. And then the other one that was left off from a national level that we wanted on there was venous blood sampling, and they're going to put that back on there as well. So I think overall they've got a good thing. They went through most of our questions and were able to handle those appropriately. So I think this can come off the agenda unless anybody has any issues. They voted to move it forward to DSHS yesterday. So anything else on that? Okay. Number two is the paramedic program accreditation update. And this has been a large topic of discussion since last year's EMS conference. And the EMS committee yesterday, or the EMS committee, the Education Committee yesterday gave an update on that. They've done 21 workshops, including the most recent ones they've done. And Maxie did a lot of work earlier this year on surveying the programs to see where they were and what their statuses were. And although there's some programs that are struggling with some pieces of this, it looks like everybody that it looks like it's not going to be the speed bump we were afraid it is. It may still have some impact, I think, in some areas of Texas, but I don't know if we're going to know what that is until after 2013, to tell you the truth. So, and I don't know of a way, because when you survey people and you ask them and they tell you they're going to do it and then they don't do it, I mean, there's no way we can really figure that out ahead of time. So, anyway, anything on the accreditation piece from anybody on the committee? Is that horse officially dead? I would just like to personally thank Maxie and the folks at DSHS and the Education Committee. There were a lot of heated discussions. I think there still are. I don't think anybody on this panel or any of the other groups that I associate with ever wanted to see accreditation not happen. I think we just had some concerns about making sure that we could make sure everybody was included, and that those doors and avenues were open. And if you've ever taken emergency medical dispatching, there's a thing they teach you. You get them calmed down, and then you ask them to do something in pre-arrival instructions, and they have what they call the refreak. And I really think that's what this was. It was the refreak. I kind of thought that would happen back when this started in 2008, 9, and 10, that we were going to have a moment when the deadline loomed and people were going to go, oh my God, and so that's what we had. So I appreciate y'all's indulgence and the work that you guys did, and the Education Committee and Maxie and his staff in trying to make sure that, and to help us beat this dead horse, to make sure that everybody who could be there is going to have an opportunity to be there. So. All righty, number three, another quick one. We, a couple of days before the deadline, submitted all of our proposed changes to Rule 157. I'd like to thank you all on the committee and those of you in the audience that came to one or more of those meetings we had. It seems like we had 100 of them, but I think it was only 4 or 5 outside of GETAC meetings. But we got a lot of good work done there. We turned in a ton of suggestions and rule language changes and things like that. And this committee went through everything. The provider rule, first responder, we went into education, we went into continuing education. I don't think there was anything, discipline, I don't think there was anything we didn't go through and say, you know, what can we do to make this better? What can we do to clean this up? And so, good hard work by the committee. And we'll wait till Jane and her staff gets those all prepared and back to us to see what they look like. So, do you have any idea what that timeline is? I mean, I know I'm asking you to predict the future and look in a crystal ball, but
Sorry.
That's all right.
Little table consult there. We're hoping to have a decent draft back to the committees sometime around maybe August. Because what we have to do is take all of the comments that came in and try to incorporate them or not into the rule, and if we don't use them, then we'll respond as to why we didn't use them. And then it has to go through our legal counsel. Legal counsel has to review it and approve it to be sure that we have the authority by statute to put in whatever it is we're doing, that we're not violating anything. And then we'll bring it back. We actually talked about timeline on this, I guess it was last week or week before last. And again, we've not gotten into going through each and every comment yet, but we're hoping to have something, a solid draft by August. Please do not hold me to that date, okay? As you know, things change you might say move our cheese periodically. Things like hurricanes and disaster responses.
I can't make my prediction what those are going to be this year yet.
We can't either, and they really do factor into how we can do our work. So barring any interruptions, that's our goal, is to have a good solid draft back in about 8 months.
Okay. Anything else on the Rule 157 changes, the ones we did? We're going to get to the accreditation thing in a minute.
If things come up.
Go ahead, speak on the mic.
If in the process, after we get the draft back, and then, of course, we're going to start having meetings, if we come up with things that are outside of the scope of what's in that draft, we have the opportunity to add things into it. Kathy made some really good points about some things that the state might be trying to do. We might want to maybe expand on those. Would that opportunity be there for us?
Well, after there'll be a formal public comment period too that's on down the line, and that will be after it comes back to the committees. So once the draft comes back, that's not the last opportunity, okay?
To add to the draft. You wanted all of our suggestions
Right.
now, and then that we were kind of under the impression that when we got those in, that was our opportunity, and then the opportunity kind of closed, and we're going to work with the draft that we get. So will we have the opportunity to add to that draft if things come up that we see?
We can look at it, absolutely. I mean, that doesn't, we don't etch it in stone. So we'll look at it with the draft, and if there's some pressing thing that comes out that we need to include in that, we can look at doing it at that time. Okay. What I'd like to have, once we have the final draft, is to have a joint committee meetings. All 10 committees come together in one room and go through from soup to nuts.
That'll be a fun few days.
It makes for some lively discussions.
You might want to sell admission for that. That could probably hire you a couple of FTEs right there, because that puppy would sell out. That'd be entertaining.
Dinah, you want to sell tickets?
All righty. Anything else for Jane on that, or Maxie? Okay. The next one, I think, is the topic that, this is kind of like city council meeting. I don't know how many of you have to go to city council meetings, but there's always one topic that everybody's there for. And as soon as that topic's done, it's like a ghost town in the city council chambers again. And I think we have arrived at the topic du jour for the EMS committee. Back in, I think it was the last GTAC meeting, there was a comment made in a meeting, and for the life of me, I can't remember where, when, or how it came up. But there was some discussion had at one of the committees about whether or not EMS certificates in Texas should be required to maintain the National Registry. To get certified now, you more or less have to become nationally registered. But you don't have to keep it according to current rules in Texas. And so a lot of folks do, but a lot of folks let it go for one reason or another. And with the change in curriculum and the update courses, I think we're going to see a lot more people let it go that have been maintaining it in the past. But this came up, and a couple of the committee members after the last GTAC meeting contacted me when we were building the agenda for this meeting and said, you know, we probably just might as well throw it out there and start a discussion to get our opinions on it. We did not address it in any way, shape, or form in the 157 suggestions we made. We never even really went there outside of the initial certification piece. So I'll throw it open to the board. Kevin, I think you may want to start this, and then after we're done, we'll open it up to the floor and just see where we're going.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was the one that put this on the agenda, or asked Dudley to put it on.
I was trying to cover.
And really, it was strictly because outside of Texas A&M leaving the Big 12 conference, there's been nothing really passionate talked about. So I thought we better throw something on here. In all honesty, I think that after the comments were made at the last GTAC, I received calls, probably as you did too, and it appeared that maybe there was some discussion among some of the committees about this. I obviously didn't know much about it, but I also hadn't followed the medical directors committee, or maybe where that might have came from. So I thought maybe we should at least open it up for discussion only, and give the folks that called an opportunity to come and speak and be heard. I know that there were some that wanted to come to some of our work group meetings because they thought that was on our agenda. I was like, not to my knowledge, we haven't even discussed this. So I just kind of wanted it on at the discussion only item. So.
Okay. Anybody else receive any phone calls or hear anything about this, Larry?
One of the concerns was the fact that if this was to take place, first of all, the refresher course would be required, and that's an additional cost. There's also the skills and the testing cost fees, and also some areas don't have the site for testing, so they would have to travel to go to a testing site. And then again, what happens if the student doesn't pass? Those are just some of the questions that were being asked.
And I think Maxie and I had a brief discussion about that, and if this were to come up as a rule change, so let's say this is something DSHS feels is wise and they want to put it in the rules, or another committee, the medical directors, cardiac, wherever, where it's been discussed, brought it up and said, you know what, I think all of our certified folks need to maintain their national registry. I believe, Maxie, you told me that would probably be something that would be grandfathered. It would be, so if the rules became effective January 1st, 2016, that whoever was certified after that would have to maintain their national registry. But those of us who were certified back when, you know, we gave sodium bicarbonate a code first, wouldn't necessarily have to maintain that national registry.
That's correct, Dudley. I can't ever imagine us being retroactive and going back requiring national registry for those people who acknowledge themselves as dinosaurs on the list server. But of course, it's always there if anybody want to take it. But you're right. I don't see us going back. It was a recommendation that came through for rule change, as I remember it, from, I believe it's the Medical Directors Committee. But if it happened, you're right, we would have to grandfather people, and we would set a year that we would start requiring and people maintain it. But then that would do away with all the options for the people in the future, because they would have to have national registry, so we wouldn't need all those options until the dinosaurs die out and turn into oil or coal or something.
That may be what's
Diamonds?
happening to me. And then I think another question that has come up in the hallways is that would not, Texas is not going to stop issuing certifications if this were to happen. I mean, legislatively you can't.
Right.
So it would be, we're doing national registry every 2 years, in Texas every 4 years. But the recertification in Texas is easy because we'd have our national registry card.
Right.
Yes, sir. You bet, man. Grab the mic.
Is something
Hang on one second, Chief. One second.
Did something happen in the EMS in the state of Texas that somebody thought this would be a good thing?
The medical directors meet, I believe, after this meeting. You might ask them. I think that's where that recommendation came from. I'm almost sure it came from them. But no, I don't know of anything that happened particularly. And remember, when we write a rule, the rule will always say National Registry or exam acknowledged by the department or something of that nature.
Yeah.
We wouldn't lock ourselves in like that.
Thank you.
Was there any sort of a cost analysis of that with the recommendation from Medical Directors Committee?
No.
Would there be one before that was ever voted on or put
Well,
in?
from the state's view, it would be a cost savings, to be honest, because now all our staff would have to do is look and see if you have a National Register card. But that'll be 40 years from now, because Lucille and I plan on being around that time, and we'll still have to have our options.
Well, and honestly, from a state perspective, you know, the states look at financial impacts as it impacts the state. You know, so it'd be up to stakeholder groups and some of us to do a financial impact on the initial provider or on the providers or the agencies that did that. So, you know, that would have to come if it looks like this thing's growing legs. You know, then those stakeholder groups would have to get involved in that, in my opinion, because I don't think the state. I don't want to say it's beyond the purview, but I don't think the state could appropriately do what it's going to cost, you know, Washington County or Schertz EMS to maintain that. So, anything else from up here? Tony, do you have anything? All righty. We'll open up for anybody that wants to come up and give your thoughts and feelings, either pro or con, because I really think we need to probably start looking at a good reasons why and good reasons why not. I would ask, and I didn't make this reminder to the committee, we are being webcast, and so please come up to the microphone, speak into the microphone, so that you may think everybody can hear you because you have a really loud voice, but the people across the internet can't. So make sure for those folks watching that we come up to the mic. So. Anyone? Come on. Don't be bashful. It always takes one to come first, and then they'll just all come. So, appreciate you breaking the ice.
I was waiting for somebody else to go first. Jeffrey Mincy with Central Texas RAC and Coryell County EMS. Cost-wise, you know, I know it might save the state in more than 40 years because I plan on being here longer than that. But the cost is going to cost agencies that help their employees maintain their certifications. Right now, all we have to do is help them maintain it by providing continuing education courses, by providing online as well as live education courses. If we go to requiring National Registry, those agencies that help their employees maintain their certifications, or even those agencies that go above and beyond and provide everything for their employees to maintain their certifications. Now, every 2 years, you got to put every employee through a week-long class. You got to backfill their shifts so that you can send your employees to a week-long class. You got to maintain their ACLS card, even though we all know once you've been to it once, it's not a huge benefit to paramedics in the field. Now, every 2 years, you absolutely must send them to the ACLS class, to the PALS class, to all these other courses that a lot of us have developed our own in-house courses that meet the real education needs in the field. Now we got to jump through a bunch of hoops and pay a whole lot of money just so that we can have another card in our wallet. If people want to maintain that card in their wallet, great, let them go do it. If they think they might leave the state of Texas, great, let them go do it. But how many of us have been telling our employees for years, you don't have to maintain it, I need your state certification. So I think there's a lot of downsides to even talking about getting rid of the state certification or requiring the National Registry.
Thank you.
Joe Ortiz, El Paso Fire Department. Now, my question being, if this was to be required or the discussion about it, if they were required to go to National Registry, that transition course, if I'm not mistaken, can only be provided by an accredited institution. Is that going to force more people to become accredited? Is this a National Registry ploy to take over the world?
That's a misquote there. You don't have to be accredited, so that's not true, no. Only people have to be accredited are paramedic programs that's teaching paramedicine, nothing else.
The reason I'm asking that, in the education committee that came to El Paso, I asked that same question, and they said that you did have to be accredited.
That's why you talk to the state director.
Good morning.
That'd be scary.
I'm
Morning,
Jane Dinsmore. I'm with PERCOM. And really, my bringing this up as a point is just because it's one of the topics that's on my mind all the time. We don't currently have a lot of CE that we provide in an online format through our company. We focus on initial training. However, I just want to point out to you, too, is kind of tying into what the first gentleman said, as far as continuing education for these people so they can maintain that. National Registry is still very archaic in the ways that they allow people to get their continuing education credits. It's okay to give initial training and do hybrid courses where they have their skills, but they can do the didactic online. But they only allow for paramedics a maximum of 10 hours of online content for continuing education, which is going to feed the problem expressed by the first gentleman where, you know, yes, ACLS you do live and PHTLS and PALS you do live, but even those courses now for recertifications have online components and then you go complete skills. So it's something to keep in mind too as we're thinking about this, is that somehow, whether it's the states, whether it's committees, whether it's individuals screaming, we have to kind of drag National Registry into the 21st century, kicking and screaming on how we can get these people the continuing education credits they need. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's bad. We have an extremely good online initial training program, and if we launch on into more CE, we plan on it being quality. But there's still that limitation there, and you need to keep that in mind, because most people, if they're required to keep it, then that means that the CE realm and what we do now is going to change based on how National Registry is driving that boat. So just a point.
Good point. Thank you, Jane.
Jane, is National Registry the only game out there? Is that it? There's nothing else, is there?
My understanding is there's at least 2 other organizations that are certifying agencies as far as they have an exam that they write. There's a couple of other states that utilize those, but I haven't researched that recently to see what those organizations are. I know there's been discussion at some prior meetings and some prior outside discussions of people that were going to look into that, but I personally have not.
Thanks.
Dudley.
Yes.
Over here. I have a question for Maxie. Yesterday in the stroke committee, they talked about changing part of the percentages or the number of hours related to recertification to include stroke CEs. If we went National Registry with this, would the state still have the ability to regulate what our CE content would be?
The state of Texas will always have control. We will never give complete control to anybody.
And that's from the state EMS director, by the way. You asked the right person that question.
That's statute, actually.
I mean, that's a good point, though. I mean, legislatively, they have the authorization to do whatever they want, even if we add to regulation that you got to maintain National Registry. So, I mean, that's actually a good point. For those in the room that aren't familiar, that didn't see our rule suggested changes, this committee actually put forth on the CE rule kind of I hate to call it a simplification, but our suggestion was to basically have the medical, trauma, airway, and pediatric, and then all those other things underneath that, lob those into one other category. And so it's definitely, this committee felt going less specific was better than trying to start to pigeonhole 2 hours here, 3 hours there. So,
Sorry.
That's all right.
Well, I was thinking maybe we should have someone from the medical directors committee. Maybe we're missing something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not as global as what we think, but maybe there was some issue that we're trying to address with this that we could look at with another way if there's somebody.
Is there anybody on the committee going to be at medical directors? You're going because you got to present. Okay. If y'all guys wouldn't mind, it's not on their agenda, but maybe under open comments, maybe when we get together in February, we could maybe 30 minutes at the end of ours and 30 minutes at the start of theirs, we could all get around the same table and and kind of hear their thoughts if they're interested in that. I think that'd be beneficial. I think it'd be beneficial. I don't want this to be one of those things, you know, I mean, we bring it up and then everybody goes, oh, it's bad, or if 2 or 3 people it's good and 2 or 3 people say it's bad, and then we go, okay, thanks. And I mean, I agree. I think that's wise, Kevin. I think we need to talk to the medical directors, what their concerns was, what they're trying to address by that. We can share our thoughts, right. Maybe even have the education folks there, and see if we can't tackle this.
You could probably still take it for that.
We're going to do it one way or the other. If they made their recommendation and DSHS regulatory decides to put that forward as a draft, we're going to tackle it in August or September. So why not start the discussion now and maybe save headache later?
And Dudley, we might need to catch the cardiac committee as well, because I heard it come out of the cardiac committee.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, if y'all could, one of y'all, if y'all wouldn't mind addressing the medical directors, I don't think I'm going to be able to be there today, so.
Dudley, I stand corrected. It was the cardiac committee.
Oh, was it cardiac?
I have a tendency
Okay.
to think they're still part of medical directors, but no, it's the cardiac committee.
Okay.
Dr. Person.
Okay, I'll talk to Dr. Person and see maybe if we can't do that together in February. Or at least have him and you know, maybe have it on our agenda again and have him and a few folks come over. So what do we have to do to...
It would also help, like you said, to get some of the providers to start putting dollars and cents to it to see what it would cost them. And what it costs to do the 144 hours for a paramedic for CE now. So those kind of comparisons.
Absolutely. Jane and Maxie, either one, for us to meet... So at our committee, if we had it on there, we could have 2 or 3 folks from the cardiac committee come meet us, and that's okay. That's not really a joint meeting. It's if they get a quorum of their committee there, then it is a joint meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'll talk to Dr. Purse, see how he wants to proceed, and see if we can address that in February. At least get some more legwork done. So, does that work for everybody? Anything else from the audience? Yes, sir.
I'm Bill Moore from the Medical Directors Committee. And
Oh, shh, stop talking about them.
Trying to remember when we had that discussion. I don't recall it. But I think probably pursuant to the Harris County issue, it might be a good idea to put the medical directors under some requirements for maintaining their certification. Just a thought.
I think that was a suggestion too from one of these committees. I'm not going to say which one. I've already named the wrong one once, but one of the committees said that.
It was ours.
You have to forgive us. We got 476 suggestions.
Is that all?
Well, but that's sections, paragraphs, and revisions.
From the EMS committee.
That's right. All I know is it took 2 emails to send all the PDF documents to Phil Lockwood. That's all I know. So, anything else on this from anybody else in the audience? So if I'm hearing the committee correctly, what we're going to do is we're going to, we'll talk to Dr. Purse and the cardiac folks, and then see maybe if we can have a little further discussion, have them in the room, let them know we're going to be talking about this, and have them come talk to us. And then meanwhile, anybody in the room that wants to do this, or anybody up here on the committee that wants to put together some cost estimates about what you think it's going to cost it, if this were to all of a sudden happen, you know, what do you think the fiscal impact is to your organization? I think that'd be beneficial. I know it'd be beneficial to all of us in the room. I also think it'd be beneficial to our regulatory agency to see that. That way they're not operating blind to what it's going to cost us as providers to be able to make that happen. All righty. Well, if there's nobody else rushing up to speak, we're going to move on to item number 5. And that's the EMSC update on pediatric protocol review. And Tony, I believe that's your item.
Yes. All right. So as we talked about at the last meetings, we did acquire a little bit of money from HRSA to...
Hey, Tony, can you get a little closer?
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
We did acquire a little bit of money from HRSA to work on our pediatric protocol review. And we contracted with TCH's Evidence-Based Outcomes Center, who is going to thoroughly review the literature on selected questions and write literature summaries, which we will put out on our website starting in the spring. And so what we did, together with a lot of the protocols that were sent to us over the last couple of years, and a lot of conversations with stakeholders and other folks, the EMSC Advisory Committee put together a a list of questions in 4 categories that we sent out to all of stakeholders, and so each of you should have gotten a invitation to a SurveyMonkey to look at those questions and prioritize them. And what we're going to do is take the 4 questions, the 4 top priority questions in each of 4 categories, and send those to the EBOC for review. Those categories are non-trauma shock, post-resuscitation management, C-spine immobilization, and pediatric non-transport. And the way we came at those categories was looking, again, at all the protocols and stakeholders that we talked to, and looking at, first off, what evidence-based literature is already either out there already or in the process of coming out from different organizations through either targeted issue grants through HRSA or other mechanisms. And there is evidence-based protocols coming out now for seizures, for respiratory distress and failure, and there is a lot of literature out there on pain management. So we chose these 4 topics. And so what we did was put out a pretty good list of questions, and what we're asking folks to do is look at that list of questions and let us know what you think are the top 4 priorities in each of those categories. If you did not receive that invitation, and this is really open to everybody to look at and send us your feedback, that's at surveymonkey.com. And if you have a pen, you can write this down if you don't have it already. That's at /7SFCYFG, or you can just get in touch with me and I can help you get there. I put this out last week. So far, as of last night, I had 31 responses, so there are some people responding to that, but we'd really like to get a lot of input from stakeholders. There's also a place on each section there for comment, so if you want to add questions or ask questions or that sort of thing, you can do that as well. But the more feedback we get, the more relevant our literature review will be. So that's where we're at. We're turning these questions over to the Evidence-Based Outcomes Center on the 30th, so we need to get these back in before the 30th. And that's where we're at.
Any comments from the group?
Good job, good work.
So Tony, just to confirm, you wanted the top 4 from each section?
Yes, the top 4 from each section. What it is, on the SurveyMonkey, it'll just give you the option to prioritize them the way you want to, and then we'll compile all those, at the on the 29th, and pick out the top 4. When we get together with the EBOC, one of the things that we'll look at with each of those is certainly the priorities, but also what evidence is out there. So it's going to be a process, but this is the start. And it's kind of a long, drawn-out process. It's time-consuming to do good literature review, and it's a little bit costly, but fortunately we were able to do this with a little bit of financial support and get this process started. So like I said, we expect our first literature reviews to come out in the spring, along with the other evidence-based protocols that are out there now that are available to be published. And we'll put those on a portal on our website that we'll be opening up in the spring.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, because I was looking through this in a couple of hallway conversations, and if people haven't been to the SurveyMonkey site, I hate to use the word saying it's quite intimidating, but it's quite intimidating. And you're asking questions, and you're asking us to rate these or prioritize what we think is the most important thing. And these are basically research type questions. So we want to look at, like on the second category, does pulse oximetry monitoring with titration of oxygen delivery improve outcomes in the post-resuscitation management of the pediatric patient in the pre-hospital setting? So if we think it's really important to do research to see if that's true, then we would rank that as the first priority, or if we would like to see a protocol that addresses that question, we would rank that as the first priority. What direction is that?
Where these questions are going to go is to conduct simply a literature review. It's not going to be new research. We just don't have the resources to do that right now, but certainly those things are, as they come along, we'll be updating and adding these, the new research as it comes out.
So
but this is going to be to prioritize these questions that you think are most appropriate for the literature review. And we chose, working with the EBOC team, we looked at what they could do given the resources and the time that we have available. And so we looked at 4 questions from each of 4 categories. Because there's lots and lots and lots of questions we could ask. But these are questions, again, that came up either through looking at protocols that we had been sent and talking to a lot of folks around the state about what they would like to see looked at in terms of what should be included in protocols and what shouldn't.
Okay. And you're saying 4 questions, but all of these pages have 4, 6, 9, 7, 8.
Right. So we're going to compile the
You're going to get
results,
the top 4 out of each one based upon
and we're
what
going
we
to take
okay.
the top
Okay, I got you.
the priority. So you prioritize them in the list the way they are, and then we'll take the top 4
being
overall.
Being the Aggie in the room, I when you said 4 and I saw 9, I got really confused. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I got in now. Thanks for Dudley in that.
Prioritize the entire list, and then we'll aggregate all that.
Thanks
on the
for Dudleying
29th.
that down for me. I appreciate it. Any questions from the audience? Anything on this review? If you need that, if you want to go take that survey, which I'd recommend you do, come see Tony. He can write down that web address for you if you couldn't copy down all the letters and numbers, and or he can send it to you via email, the link, and you can get on there and take it. So, anything from the committee?
Give us the email address one more time, and read it slow. And
Yeah, it's www.surveymmonkey.com/S/7SFCYFG.
You got this.
Mm-hmm.
And that
And I can get anybody that just get in touch with me. I'll get you that information.
Is the date set in stone? The date?
It's open now, and I'll close it manually on the at the end of the day on the 29th.
Well, we were just having a discussion here. It would almost have been easier, or maybe even better, if we could have discussed that at our RAC meetings and got kind of a regional perspective instead of an individual department perspective. I'm not sure exactly what you're after, honestly, but it would have been nice to have been able to discuss that at maybe the RAC meetings as a region point of view.
Right.
But if the deadline is the 30th, then that's probably
Right. Part of that is that we have to work within our time frame for the grant year. And the money that was given to us over halfway through the year. It's up. And so we're literally running out of time. And so if we don't start it now, we won't finish in time.
I understand.
We got to spend the money in a certain time frame. But that does not mean that we can't continue those discussions, with the RAC as time goes on, because we do intend to continue this. We'll be looking for more funding and continue this, year after year.
Thank you.
Anything else? All righty. Thanks, Tony.
You bet.
Next on our agenda, we have a presentation from the Registry Solutions Work Group. And so I'll let you, I'm sorry I rushed in and didn't even stop to say hi on my way in, but I'll let you introduce yourself and tear through it.
Okay. My name is Brooke Corbell. I'm a registered nurse paramedic, and I'm also a member of the Registry Solution Work Group. What we're going to go through really quick, and I won't take a lot of your time, but we just want to talk about what we're doing as far as building reports and the registry and where we're at with that. What we'll be talking about today is the purpose of our group, the objectives, the composition, who's on this, and the big thing is the reports that are recommended for the new system. The next steps, we're reaching out. We'll be having some webinars in that we really encourage you folks to sign in on and give us your feedback, and then discussing some of the upcoming topics that we still need to hammer out on this registry. The purpose of the registry is to provide a means for the stakeholders to communicate the subject matter and the expertise to Department of State Health Services. We also want to interface with the other stakeholder groups. We have hospitals, we have EMS, and we need to make sure that we're all getting meaningful, accurate data that goes into our new registry. We know we've needed this for a long time, and it's great that we're finally here. Some of the completed objectives that we have done, we have did the request for the offer with the new registry, which is Consilience. We selected the data elements that will be available, and then what we're looking at now again are the reports that we need. We'll be reaching out to the RAC chairs group. We're reaching out to EMS, the medical directors, and of course to the hospitals and trauma facilities. Some of the future objectives that we're looking at are to have this as a continued means for the stakeholders' involvement so that we can develop and make sure that we are meeting the needs and creating an awesome registry for Texas. The composition, we have the hospitals, all of our trauma-designated hospitals and pediatric trauma designation, EMS, rural, frontier, and urban, our GETAC groups, Department of State Health Services, TxDOT is involved with our motor vehicle crashes, and then NMSIS is also being consulted for the data elements that are going in there. We also have added components for traumatic brain injury. This is through the Department of Assistance and Rehab Services and then the Health and Human Services Commission. We also have included submersions in our Texas registry, and we'll be looking at the entries that report the greatest numbers and opportunities for our injury prevention, obviously. Some of the way that the reports will be created. Consilience is going to build the most complicated reports for us. There will be 10 that were contracted or on the contract that they will build, and then they are also educating the Department of State Health Services staff so that they can build reports, and then we as users will be able to pull queries and build our own reports so that we can benchmark. If I'm looking at my facility, how we handle our spinal cord injuries, and I'll be able to pull that and benchmark against other facilities that like size and with the state. We'll also the queries can be created to analyze data on the facility level. The authorized users will have privileges to view, and we can get aggregate data from other facilities so that we can benchmark. Some of the other reports that we will be looking at. This is a list of the sources that we considered when discussing which reports that will be recommended. We also found, I guess we have some opportunities to contact more of the RAC chairs to get more involvement on what the RACs need for our specific, like our PI and that. Some of the current reports. Jory went over some of these at the Trauma Systems Committee, and it was a nice lead-in if anybody was here for that meeting. We can look at our alcohol, the analysis, cause of injury, our ISS scores, the monthly activities. Do we see trends in July that we don't see in September? Also, our mortality. We can pull these reports quarterly. We can run them by the year, and again, we can benchmark against other facilities to see how we compare. Some of the EMS reports, which will be interest to this committee, cardiac transport review, pre-hospital interventions, kind of goes back to your standards you were talking about, cause of injuries, response times, the total volume that you're having and compare against other areas, the outcomes, transport mileage, and then trauma versus medical on the type of calls that we're having. Some of the recommendations for the reports that are currently available in the trauma registry. We keep the current reports so that we can utilize them and we can continue to look at historical data, allow the hospitals to run comparison statistics, run the EMS reports. Again, these will be aggregate. They will not have identifiers attached to those so that we can look at the statewide data and not have to worry about any particular confidentiality areas. The national trauma, national data when possible for state and national comparison, because we will be able to articulate with the NTDBS. Speaking of that, here are just some of the reports that we currently get with the National Trauma Data Bank. One of the types that they give are a lot of graphic reports. They have, these are just some examples that they look at by trauma designation. We, at the work group, are recommending that we use the same concept for each of our subscribers to be able to compare their facility, again, aggregate data to the other facilities. Either we can look at our RAC, we can look at our trauma service areas, or we can look at like facilities. If I want to look at level 2s to see how we compare, then that would be an opportunity there for me. Some of the other recommendations for the NTDBS reports is the enhanced comparison. The comparison reports will be available to the hospitals, and this is only in order to compare our hospital with similar designated hospitals to see, again, we can benchmark off of this data. EMS would have access to several hospital reports that are based on the aggregate data that combines data, say, for a particular group of facilities that have a common characteristic, such as the group of hospitals with a bed size over 200, how are they doing, on their door to balloon, whatever, and RACs will also be able to use that data. We can look for a trauma service area, we can look at the disaster response, we can look by number of beds, and then injury rates, ventilator days, any data that we want to pull that we're collecting. The NMSIS reports, they like pie charts, and so this will probably be the format that you'll see. Again, this is just aggregate data. The website, if you want to go get their data dictionary, is www.nimsis.org, and that gives them their data set dictionary, which will be integrated into our registry also. Some of the recommendations that we had for our NMSIS reporting, again, we can benchmark with our EMS. The comparison data will be available to EMS only for a particular EMS to compare themselves to other EMSs in their RAC and TSA trauma service area. Hospitals will have aggregate data to EMS reports, like the top 10 complaints for being transported, and we can again create queries on that. It allows comparison to other agencies in your city, in your RAC, in your state, and also in the United States because of the National Trauma Database integration. Some of the examples that we can pull from that would be like delays, delay of dispatch, delay of response, long scene times, transport, turnaround times, and then we can also pull by our top 10 patient complaints. Here's some of the sample reports that we'll be doing. If you'll remember, I think in August we talked about some of the data that we wanted in our trauma registry, and it was traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. And so this is the report that shows you that focus. It's a mock report. These aren't real numbers, so it's just to get the colors up there. The other thing that we were looking at is comparison data based on the recommendations, from the traumatic brain injury, spinal cord. It lets us look at the causes, are they work-related? By trauma designation, where are these patients going? We can review in retrospect, was this appropriate, and maybe look at our protocols. Some of the other reports that you can see, and these are the ones that they used at the trauma committee earlier today. This is just two of the tables that are part of the data that we used. The Trauma Assistance Committee, we can, our fall from standing, tripping, stumbling, unspecified fall, motor vehicle crashes, transfers out of our RAC area. These are important to look at. Here's some of the other, this would probably, this was not of interest to the RACs, but this is just a method of payment, Medicare self-pay. I know this is one that my administration is very interested in. Our self-pay is way up. So just some other types of data that we can look at. This one again, are we traveling out of our RAC? Where we're at in El Paso, if you have a burn, you're leaving my RAC to go to a burn center. So these are some things that you can trend and track. Some of the other reports that they were looking for EMS, hospital, this is where if you can sign into the webinar, we're really encouraging participation and input from the stakeholders. Some of the requested reports, we've been listening to the stakeholders in this, and so standard reports from the RAC survey is part of the effort to make sure that we get this. So this RAC survey will definitely be resent out. So the next steps that we have to do, there are a lot of reports that, we're beginning to develop right now. It's an ongoing process. This is not going to be a static registry. It's going to be a dynamic registry that we can adapt to meet our needs. Department of State Health Services is still seeking input, and again, the next webinar, I believe, is November 29th, and if you go to the DISH's website, it'll tell you what time and how to register for that. The frequently asked questions from the webinars will be created, they'll be posted, and hopefully answer most of the questions, and we are sending out email notifications as far as announcements when this will be. Tammy is in charge of this. Here's her contact information. If you have any questions, we encourage you, please, to discuss with us what we want. We've been waiting for a great registry for Texas for a while now, so it's nice that we're getting there.
Any questions from the group? Brian?
Do we have a timeline yet when we're going to start having to report this?
August.
Yes, we are still on time with our project plan that we had originally, and we will go live in August of 2012.
And that's for EMS reporting, or that's for hospital reporting?
That's for both.
For both.
You had made mention in the other committees about the user application. You're going to try to clean that up where we can add users, delete users. Now it won't be, it'll be a different process. Is that correct?
Yes, what you have, because we decided to go with the national standards because our stakeholders had requested that, so we're using NEMSIS, that's our national standard. And if you have studied those data elements, you'll see that there's quite a few that are about your actual business. And those are required if, in the national data set that NEMSIS wants you to send as an extract to them. Many of those elements are used to create some of the national reports when they're trying to compare EMSs with different characteristics against each other. So what will happen is there's a part of our website where you will go and there's a firewall which will not allow you into any other part, but it will allow you to enter just enough information to kick off your setting up an account with us. Once you have submitted that information, we've verified who you are and who your entity is, then you're allowed into another part of the website where you can finish entering in all your entity information. And these are all based on the NEMSIS administrative type of data elements. If you need a little memory jog on that, you can go to the DSHS injury page, and you'll find there the list of RSWG recommended data elements for EMS. And in that list are all the ones that the Registry Solution Work Group went through one by one, all the hundreds of the NEMSIS elements, and they came up with a list from there that they recommended that everyone report. We will have every single item that NEMSIS has available for you to report, but not all of them will be required. But in order to set up your account, we will need to get that basic administrative data from you so that when you go to extract your file to send to NEMSIS, that you have the appropriate data to populate that national file that will go to them as well. I know that was sort of long, but did that answer it?
How old is the data going to be before it's released for reporting? I mean, if we're going to be able to run reports real time, or is this going to be 2 years old before we can actually run a report on it?
You can query the system on the data that is in there to date. The problem with that is that if you do that in the middle of a year and you're looking at trying to report, you have to be very careful about who you're sharing that data with. You as a user may know that you're looking at an incomplete year, but if you share that with somebody else, you have to make sure to let them know what you have. And usually it takes 6 months after the end of the year before we have a complete data set. And that's because we want to allow as much time as possible. I have actually increased that amount of time over what it has been in the past. When we came up to the deadline this year, for everyone to have all of their cases in for 2010, for example. I received a few phone calls, panicked phone calls from people who didn't have their data in yet. And I extended that deadline because every registry I've ever worked with in my career has always had their final data set 6 months after the end of the previous year. So that if we're not going to close out our data set, there's no sense in us saying that you can't keep sending us data during that time. But for the purposes of you running reports in the system, you would want to make sure that you are using what we are calling the final closed out data set and be able to tell people when you share that data that that's what it's based on. Or if you're not, you would say that you're using a preliminary data set that is not final and that those numbers may change.
Is that good? That's good. Anything else from anybody else on that? I was looking at those reports, and I think I saw this. So for my agency, I will be able to see outcomes for my patients. I'm not necessarily, Brian, my frequent flyer, but I can see if I took 25 trauma alerts and 20% of them recovered and 5% were mortality or whatever. I mean, will we get that kind of data out of it? Will we be linked to our hospital stuff?
No, not the way you're asking it. The answer is no. So let me tell you what you will be able to see.
Okay.
You'll be able to see what you sent us, which is what you're able to see right now. That's not changing. What we are talking about as far as allowing EMS to run hospital reports is that we realize that you might want to know what's going on in your RAC or your TSA based on, overall. And so when you run a report that's based on hospital data, all you're going to get is aggregate. You're not going to get any facility names. You're not going to get any patient level. You're going to get how many died, how many lived, that sort of thing. So it's not going to be tied to your EMS to what happened to them at the hospital. But let me go on because I know that we want to be able to look at that. So one of the major business requirements for our new system is that we are able to link EMS data to hospital data on the patient. So they're building that into our system so that we'll be able to do that. When we have that all linked together, so it could be EMS 1, Hospital 1, EMS 2, Hospital 2, how many ever it takes for that particular person's event, they'll be linked together. They will be in a de-identified data set for analysis, and you will be able to look at that.
Will
That's going to take us a while to get because we've
Oh, yeah.
never done this before.
Will I be able to go in, search through cities and say, this city here, I don't know what the city name is, I just know numbers, has the same number, about the same population as my city? Will I be able to say, okay, I want to kind of compare my EMS agency to that EMS agency, not knowing what, say, I wouldn't know it was Schertz, but since our numbers, our populations are almost the same, I could say, wow. Then I would be able to say, okay, my response times are a little bit faster than Schertz, because they are. And
hey, dude, we're not competing.
But would I be able to do that?
We haven't taken it down to the level of the city yet. If that's something that our stakeholders desire us to do, we can look into it. We have to start being really careful about sizes of cities.
Yeah.
I'm more like population.
Yeah, you did talk about there's benchmarking there, though. I mean, we're going to be able to kind of refine what we're benchmarking against.
Yes, so far what we've got is the trauma service area, RAC, however you prefer to, I always refer to it as trauma service area because that's the geographic entity. Yeah. And when we're talking data, we're talking geographics usually. So you can compare that to your entity. You can compare your entity to the state, and we're hoping to get some national data in there. The next lowest geographical level that I have talked about, but we haven't gotten any formal response to that, is county level. Because we're trying to come up with, you have to have your denominator. So you have to be able to say how many people live in a specific area, define it so that your numerator, then you can get comparable data. So I think we could look at doing city. We just need to be really careful because Texas has such a wide variety of sizes when we start talking cities and what defines a city. For instance, some cities have half of a zip code in them and the other half is not in the city. It gets really complicated trying to get down to that level of data.
Is there a way to do it by zip code or something along those lines? I'm thinking it might be advantageous for people that have rural systems to be able to compare themselves to other rural systems other than, you know, they don't want to compare with the Houston Fire Department, obviously, response times and those kind of things. So can it go down to zip codes?
Zip codes are also getting to the point where even if we don't identify what entity reported it, in some instances, people are going to know, I think. So in order to protect the entity's identity, I think we would have to look at the size of the population of the zip code as well as the number of entities reporting from that zip code.
Would there be classifications in there, and I don't remember the data elements as to if a service is a rural, frontier, metroplex? That may well be the way to do it.
We have analyzed data in the past based on those categories, and we can do that. So if that's something that you all think would be beneficial to have, we can make the definitions of those in our database so that you can query on those. So what we basically do is create a table that you wouldn't see. It's a reference table that would have urban and rural and frontier. And then when you go to run a report based on one of those, it will grab that definition in order to select the people who meet one of those 3 criteria.
The only other thing I was going to add there at the end was kind of where I was going originally about linking patients is that I know that's valuable for us to be able to see outcomes. And I also know that the hospitals think it's valuable to be able to get EMS data. It's just... and for the hospital folks, I apologize, but I'm just tired of battling this. We bend over backwards to give the hospitals our information, and it's like stinking getting blood out of a turnip to get that information to go the other way. And so as that moves forward, it really, I think from a stakeholder perspective from the EMS, I'd like to say whatever the hospitals get, make sure EMS can get, and I think we'll all be happy with that. And if hospitals don't want to release that to EMS, then I don't think EMS wants to release that to the hospitals. And I hate to do that, but they're hiding behind issues. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people come up to me and say, well, our hospital does it. There's a ton of informal mechanisms out there. But we go as far as, the hospitals went as far as getting a rule in place that requires us to give them their information. If we tried to do that to require hospitals to report outcomes to us, it would be like saying that hospitals had to paint all their facilities pink with purple polka dots on them. I mean, people would go nuts if we tried to do that. And that's just wrong. We're in a new day. We're in a new age. This is a profession that we have dedicated our lives to. And for us to make this profession better, we've got to get those outcomes. So you guys are making a very big key for a very powerful lock. And so if that can happen through your mechanism, you guys are going to be great for the future of EMS in Texas. So
one thing that we will be doing, I'm thinking it'll probably excuse me, be around March or April, is a webinar showing the outcomes of linking the current data that we have. We need to be able to start having conversations about some of the difficulties in linking data and why we have those difficulties. Because even if we build a system that has the capability of doing it, if we don't have the data in there that allows us to do it, it'll fail.
And it's not an easy task.
Right.
You know, George Smith to George Smith is not easy to figure out to make sure you got the right one.
So we're going to start showing some real examples where you won't actually see who the people are, but you will see, for instance, when certain key data elements are missing, what is the probability of these 2 people matching? And when those are present, what's the probability of these matching? So that you'll be able to start understanding the weight that each one of the variables adds to our ability to be able to link.
Cool. Thank you all for your time and for the presentation. Lastly, and I know we're bumping right up against the noon hour, is number 7, the review of the proposed changes for accreditation to 15732. I believe I heard in one of the meetings yesterday, I think education, that there were no other recommended changes put into this rule right now except for the stuff necessary to make accreditation happen and be binding by rule. And I hope we sent that out to the committee. I hope everybody had the chance to review that. Is there any comments from the committee? Anything you'd like to see for us to take the GETAC as a recommended change, or what?
Just for clarification on the hours for the curriculum, it's asking for the minimum. Is there a minimum for
Do you have a line number by any chance?
Oh, 97. So it's got a minimum of 140 hours. Is the National Registry curriculum a little higher than that?
Maxie?
The hours haven't changed. We're not changing the hours at all as far as minimal standards. If you said National Registry. National Registry don't have anything to do with the curriculum here. I'm not getting your question. They don't put an hour. They didn't really put any hours on the new educational standards. They're out there, but they didn't actually put the hours, so that's still left up to us now. Mindfully so, we can't teach a paramedic class at 600 hours anymore, but I'm not changing that right now. We only addressed minimal things that we had to this time around, because this rule will still be open as we work through the rulemaking process. But the things that we actually changed is to require accreditation, leave a caveat in for those programs that are not accredited to become accredited, as well as taking basic out of EMT, because that's not statute. And I think EMT basic has a negative connotation when you say basic, and we're going to just change that to EMT so to reflect statute, and then adopting the EMS educational standards, the new standards. That's basically what we did to this rule.
Anything from anybody else? The only thing I asked, and I saw that our committee made a recommendation on all the rules that we turned in for 157 review, that we lose vendor-specific language. So our recommendation was to lose National Registry everywhere and just put a national certifying exam approved by the department. And I saw you added that. Is there any, I guess our recommendation from our committee may be that, and this is open to the committee, but is to lose the COA EMSP and just say a national accrediting body approved by the department.
That caveat is in there. It's COA or, so that will remain the same.
Okay. There is one where that was left off. It's the very last change, way down in the like 700s or somewhere like that. There's just one place where it was left off on the change. Hang on, almost there. Page down doesn't work as fast as I want it to. But it is the very last one. 817. That's the only place that you missed it. If y'all want both, that's fine. I was happy to see that other line in there, though, so just in case, you know, the tectonic plates shift and COA EMSP goes out of business and somebody else steps into that hole, that we don't have to jump through hoops there. Anything else on the rule change from y'all? Anything from the room on that? We've had opportunity yesterday at the Education Committee. I know the medical directors are going to talk about it, but does anybody have any wishes or desires or questions about 15732 and the proposed changes for making accreditation a part of the rules? All righty. That was pretty good work on that rule too. I thought it was pretty all-encompassing and well written out. So I appreciate y'all jumping through those hoops. I know, again, that's part of the stakeholder refreak moment that we had, but I appreciate y'all making that happen. So. Anything else on that rule? Then we will move on to general public comment. Anybody in the audience got anything you want to say, bring up, ask about, suggestions for our agenda for our February meeting?
Just like to comment
on a couple of the items earlier?
Absolutely.
First off, the National Registry, I think we really need to look at that. We need to really get with the RAC chairs, to get with their EMS subcommittees, and have them come up with a position paper or how they feel about it. I could really see this being a detriment, cost-wise, to our West Texas counties and travel and everything like that.
Absolutely.
Also, I want to show support for Kathy, I believe, from the state earlier, on the private ambulance services. I'm one of those. I service a city of 10,000 people, population of about 25,000 total. I had 5 private ambulances move in. I have 1 hospital, 2 nursing homes, and 1 assisted living facility in my community. One of those services went out of business. Why? Because they were doing everything by the book, and they had to leave. The rest of them, I don't know how they're surviving. Anything, like Brian said, that we can do to help the state, myself and many, many other professional EMS services will stand up to help. And the one thing I wish this committee could get behind and possibly do is have those services take EMS off the side of their ambulances. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Maxie, I get his name. He's pretty sharp.
Yeah, he's ready to
John,
go to,
he's pretty
we
sharp
could give him
guy.
a bat maybe.
Because you are the state EMS director.
We're very clear on that. Brian actually thought maybe you should be issued a weapon. I don't think Jane feels that way looking at her.
I'm packing.
All righty. Any other public comment? Here she comes. Here you go.
Greetings. I am Dinah Welsh, and I'm with TTAF, Texas EMS Trauma and Acute Care Foundation. And we held our meeting last night, and I just wanted to report quickly that from the EMS front, Scott Mitchell, who has been our EMS division chair, he recently resigned his position due to some job changes, and he's going to actually focus on that new job for some reason. But I appreciate Scott's leadership with TTAF, but we have just named a new EMS division chair, and the EMS division approved him remaining as the chair, and some of you may have heard of him, Dr. Ed Rock. And so he will be chairing that division. We're very excited about the excitement that he brings to any room, any table, and I think we will see a re-energized EMS division within TTAF. And again, I appreciate Scott's support and leadership, and certainly Dudley's, as he is also a TTAF board member. And so look forward to working with y'all. I think, one of the things with TTAF is we really try to stand in the gap of where the state can do things, and then those things that they can't, and we try to step up there and want to partner with y'all to push EMS forward in the state of Texas as best we can. So thank y'all for all of the work that you do, and we hope to be able to work with y'all better in the coming months.
Thank you, Donna.
Sure, thank you.
Yes, Max.
I'd also like to recognize Marilyn Talley. She's our new manager in the Houston area. She's going to straighten it out.
There you go.
So Marilyn, you here? Oh, yeah.
There she is.
There's Marilyn. So she's the new manager in Houston. Thank you.
Y'all didn't tell her what she was signing on for till she said I do, did you? No, I know.
Marilyn, that's John Kowalik back there in the back. Raise your hand, John. She knows you.
And also for those of you in the room, because I tell you, I see a lot of you guys at all these meetings, and when TTAF has their meetings and the EMS division meets, I don't see too many EMS people there. And I know it's just one more meeting and it's one more time commitment, but if you're coming to these regularly and your RAC doesn't have an EMS representative that comes to the TTAF meetings, please consider going to your RAC chair and volunteering for that position. We need EMS representation. TTAF, as well as the other stakeholder groups, can do a lot to help combat the problems we've been talking about. They can help through a variety of roles, assist DSHS in implementing the things that need to be done to clean up these messes. So please use this as a catalyst. Get involved in TTAF. We meet for an hour and a half and a few conference calls, and that's really it. So, but if you're involved, if we have a group, then we can make some change. We can get some priorities set and get some work done that'll help change things. So I do appreciate that. In full disclosure, I am on the board of TTAF, but it's a great organization, as well as the other stakeholder organizations that are out there that I also am a part of. Anything else, public comment? Anybody else? Jane, did you have something?
We're just wondering if you were going to vote on the draft of that rule that y'all.
Oh, yeah, we do need to do that, don't we? Yeah, and take that to GETAC. So on that rule, thank you for reminding me. It's so long since we've had to do a rule thing. I forgot how we do that. So we've done the discussion on the rule. Can I have a motion that the EMS committee approves that and is recommending it to GETAC?
Make a motion that we move forward with that rule as written.
I'll second.
Second? All right. Okay, hang on. Lucille.
I lost it.
Here, use the high-tech computer. There you go.
What was the motion, Lucille?
That we approve one.
Make a motion that we move forward with the rule as written.
That was seconded by Lon. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All righty. The other issue we have is our next agenda. I don't think we're going to try to meet in January unless people think we need to, so our next meeting will be February at the main GTAC meetings. Anything for that agenda?
Dudley, I would probably like to add, and I've talked to you and I've talked to the chair of the medical direct, or the chair of the air medical. It's come to my attention that fixed wing services that fly in the state of Texas don't have to be licensed in the state of Texas. They have to be licensed in their appropriate state. The question that's come up is how do we allow non-certified Texas providers to allow patient care in the back of an ambulance when the patient care is being provided by somebody who's not Texas certified? I've taken that to the air medical, going to discuss it again and probably try to bring it up in medical directors, but I think that there's a big hole there that we need to discuss and probably come up with some answers or to look forward with that.
Okay. I'll put that on there. I'll probably get a hold of you via email and see exactly what tack you want to take on that, but we'll put that on our agenda for February.
Okay.
Anything else for February? Tony? I know
Yeah,
you're
I have some updates. We are doing a survey. Matter of fact, for the EMS providers this week at conference at our booth. We're in row 1600, by the way. Come by and take our survey. But and then we will be hopefully we get our IRB back and get our survey done in time for the medical directors for the 911 responding agencies. And I'm hoping to have that information back. These are having to do with online, offline medical direction and the idea of regionalized online medical direction capability. So if you'll put that on the agenda, I'll give a report then.
PD survey is good enough. I'll get the language from him. All righty. Anything else from anybody in the audience? Anything else from the committee? I appreciate y'all hanging to the end. Have a great EMS conference. Please be safe. I know we come to these things and we have a lot of really good fun, but sometimes we forget that we're mortal. So please remember that. And have a great conference. We'll see you out there.